will start with the first presentation. It's my pleasure to give the floor to Dimitar Markov, the director of the CSD Law Program, and the main driving force of the ObsidianNet initiative, to present the project, the main objectives, concept of the project, our outcomes, etc. Please, Dimitar.
Thank you, Maria. Let me just share the screen. In the next couple of minutes, you will basically learn what ObsidianNet was all about. As Maria mentioned, this is the final event of a 2-year project on the rights and identification and communication with offenders with psychosocial and intellectual disabilities. Throughout this presentation, you will hear a lot of thank yous, because this was a really tough exercise, having in mind the conditions that during the 2nd year of this project just hit upon us all. But still, we were able, and we are happy now to present the closing of this, according to us, quite a successful project. So ObsidianNet, as Maria mentioned, stands for Offenders with Psychosocial and Intellectual Disabilities Identification, Assessment of Needs, and Treatment. Why basically we did this project? This is because we found out that the situation of people with psychosocial and intellectual impairments in many cases and in many countries is actually preventing their effective and equal participation when they come into contact with the law enforcement and criminal justice authorities. Which means that compared to other people that do not have such impairments, they might be in a disadvantaged position throughout the proceedings. And such people, not very often, but still, in many cases, they actually can come into contact with the criminal justice system. Even if they are found not guilty, or the criminal proceedings are discontinued because of their impairment, at the very beginning, they do come into contact with the authorities, and in many cases they suffer from unequal treatment. And also, according to our preliminary research, this is in many cases due to the fact that authorities are not aware of how to identify and how to address these impairments of the people they are in contact with. So this is basically why we decided to launch this project and to work on this topic. The next question is how. We decided that we want to build the project on 2 main pillars. One is the research, to study in detail what the situation actually is, what is there in place, what are the gaps, and what can be done to fill in these gaps. And the second main pillar is, or was, to build some working practical tools that would help law enforcement and criminal justice authorities, but also other practitioners, on how to identify the situation, the problems of persons with intellectual or psychosocial impairments, and how to address these. For whom the project was mainly designed, as I mentioned, it was targeted mostly on first-line practitioners from the criminal justice and law enforcement systems, but it can also people that can also benefit from the findings and from the practical tools that were designed are also practicing criminal lawyers, human rights activists, civil society organizations that are working on topics related to criminal justice, academics, but also the general public, because we tried, and I think we managed to communicate our results to a broader audience that would not necessarily be practically involved in these issues, but still the level of awareness, I think, needs to be raised, and we used some of the project outputs to additionally raise the awareness on the situation of these people. This is something that we found during the research stage of the project, but it very well summarizes what the rationale behind the whole project actually was. And this is a quote from the prison reform, from a publication of Prison Reform Trust and Rethink Mental Illness, which is called Mental Health and Learning Disabilities in the Criminal Courts. And it's basically why we did this project, because as you see on the screen, it is not unusual that accused persons and suspects do appear before the authorities without indicating that they might have a certain condition. In many cases, this condition remains unnoticed for the authorities for a variety of reasons, either because the people themselves don't know that they have this condition, or it was not diagnosed, or they deliberately try to hide it. But in any case, this can lead to a certain, not necessarily violations, but restrictions of their right, just because the authorities are not able to identify properly and on time their condition. To put it in more simple words, this is how we formulated the mission of our project. And it is basically what I already said, to try and contribute to a more equal treatment of people with psychosocial and intellectual impairments when they come into contact with the criminal justice system and the law enforcement authorities, to avoid depriving them of some of their rights just because they're not able to exercise them, just because their problem was not properly identified and addressed. Who we are, as Maria mentioned, behind this project, there's a team of 4 organizations from Bulgaria, Belgium, Greece, and Italy. And here comes the first big thank you in my presentation. Behind these nice 4 logos that are on the screen is actually a very dedicated and committed team of experts from the 4 organizations that made this project possible. In particular, during the second year, when the conditions got really tough, all of these people that are behind the scene actually did a lot of effort to make everything go smoothly. And I'm again saying a big thank you to everybody who was involved during this 2-year journey called Obsidianet. And also, there's a big thank you for our partners at the European Commission that found the project worth for support. You all know that the competition is quite severe, and we are really happy that the topic and the outputs that we planned to produce were found by the European Commission worth supporting. So the second big thank you on this screen goes to the European Commission for making this project possible. As every project, this one was divided into 5 main components. The management and the coordination, which made the whole effort possible and go smoothly despite the really severe environment during the second year of the project. The research and analysis component, which was aimed at identifying and assessing what is there, what is missing, and what can be done to fill the gap. The design and development component, which was mostly aimed at designing a methodology, how to identify and how to communicate with people with psychosocial and intellectual impairments, and a manual, a more practical tool based on the methodology that would help criminal justice and law enforcement authorities and other first-line practitioners when they get into contact with such persons. The education and training component, which is basically aimed to improve the capacity of stakeholders on how to work with such persons, and the dissemination and outreach component, which was designed as quite a comprehensive dissemination strategy to make the for outreach and for making the results available and accessible to the broadest possible audience. A couple of words for each of these components and the main outputs that we managed to deliver. The research and analysis part was aimed at mapping the situation in the 4 project countries, but also internationally. Examine what the scientific literature says on the topic. We found out a lot of works that have been developed on this particular topic, and also identify some promising practices that can be adapted or transferred or replicated in other countries. Here is the point in my presentation where I should say that some of the speakers that are now with us have been actually identified through this research and analysis component. We found their work quite impressive, and we were very much willing to have them on board for the final event. So I'm happy that some of them were actually able to join us, and you will hear their presentations later on. What you can find on the project website for download, if you're interested, are the 4 country reports on the situation and the rights of persons with psychosocial and intellectual impairments in the 4 project countries. These reports are available in English only, and you can download them from the website. They examine in detail the situation of these persons, both generally in terms of their legal status, but also specifically when they are involved in criminal proceedings. The other 2 main outputs that were developed and also are available for you to download on the website is a really comprehensive collection of resources, which is like a reference book about what was published, what is available on the topic, and the main output of the analytical component of the project, the Vulnerable Offenders book, which is unlike the other reports, available in 5 different languages, and this is English, Bulgarian, Greek, Italian, and French. You can download it from the website, but also if you are interested to have a printed copy, you can just email us and we will make sure to send you. I'm not sure that all the language versions are still available, but if you're interested, send us an email and we will let you know and provide you with a copy of this book for you to have. The design and development component was divided into 2 stages. The first one was examining what's in place and reviewing existing methodologies from all over the world on the identification and communication with people with psychosocial or intellectual impairments, as well as the practical tools available for facilitating communication with them. And based on that, during the second stage, to develop a methodology and more practical tool, which is the manual for first-line practitioners on how to work in this with these persons and how to make sure they properly safeguard their rights and identify on time their situation. The outputs here is a mapping report, which is on the left-hand side of the slide, about what we found as existing methodologies that we found useful and working. Our own methodology, which is in the middle, and which is mostly based on what is in place and what has been done so far. And on the right-hand side is the practical manual, which again is available in different languages, as I mentioned, English, French, Italian, Greek, and Bulgarian, and for which the recommendation to send us an email if you want a printed copy is also valid, because it's available also on hard copy. This will be briefly presented at the end of today's conference. The education and training component or the capacity building stage of the project was also divided into two main sections: practical training seminars for practitioners in the 4 countries, in Bulgaria, Belgium, Greece, and Italy. Due to the pandemic, the European Commission was flexible to allow us to adapt this component. It was originally planned to have in-person events. We did only one. We did only some of the events in person. The others went online. Of course, this allowed us to have more broader audience, maybe at the expense of the proactiveness of the audience and the networking component of these seminars, which was less active in the online environment. But still, we are happy that we managed to deliver all the training seminars to the practitioners in the 4 countries. And the second component of this, the second part of this component is the online training program, for which you will learn more later. The main outputs, as I said, in-person and online seminars in each of the 4 countries, and the Obsidia Train online training course. You will hear more about that at the end of this conference, but at this point, I would very much like to encourage you, go visit the website, register in the, and do the online course. The feedback so far is quite positive, and I think that this is something that is not that broadly available so far. So we are pretty much proud of this particular tool that we launched, also available in more than 1 language, but you will hear more about that later. So I encourage you to stay until the end of the conference and learn more. I promise it is interesting tool. Finally, the dissemination and outreach, which included the identification of our ObsidianNet's audience, the visual identity of the project, a regular newsletter, a number of online publicity channels or tools, and a final conference. These are some of the outputs. I would mention here the project logo, which was designed by, we actually launched a competition with prizes for winners to raise awareness on the issue, asking people to send us their ideas of a project logo that fits the topic. From the number of logos we received, I think that the objective of promoting the project from the very beginning through the logo competition, we should consider a success. So this is the winning entry, and we are really proud that ObsidianNet's logo was designed in such a way through a competition of artists who were interested enough to study the topic, to learn more details about the issue, and translate this into their view of how the project logo should look like. We have a regular newsletter. So far, we have 4 issues released. They are all available on the website, in addition to the mailing list to which each issue was disseminated. The project website and Facebook page of the project. On the project website, you will find all the deliverables for download, but also recent news on the topic, more information on how you can get in contact with us. and the Facebook page, which is also a very dynamic tool for communicating our achievements, but also sharing the work others do on the topic. And we have a community there that we hope we can keep even after the closing of this action. Finally, as you see where you are now, where we all are now, this is the final event. As Maria mentioned, we were very much willing to have this in person and properly acknowledge the successful end of this project. Unfortunately, the current situation did not allow us to do that. We were hoping up to the very, very last moment that this would be possible, but it was not. So we are now in this online environment, but I hope that the conference will be as successful as if we were able to organize it offline. Finally, we are very, very much open to feedback. You can write us, you can use the website with the contact form available there. You can send us an email. You can write us on Facebook. We are open to critical feedback, positive feedback, whatever you wish to share about the project and about what you've learned or what other issues might be interesting for you. Use these channels to get in contact back with us. Also, if you wish to learn more or receive some of the outputs that are available as hard copies, we'll be happy to provide you with that. Again, I encourage you to get in contact with us and tell us what you think. So with this, I would like to conclude this very introductory presentation on this, in this conference. Again, a big thank you to everyone who made it possible. A big thank you to everyone who managed to find some time and join today. I hope you won't regret it. I think that there are interesting presentations coming up after me. So stay tuned, and I hope you enjoyed the conference. And this is all for on my part.